First of all, as I said, I would like to know a bit about the theatre scene here, because in Hong Kong we are really, we don't. I think the only Czech dramatist we know is Havel.
Yeah, of course.
I think he's
Not bad.
he's so famous, so well, that's the only one we know. And in fact, his work, Memorandum, I think it's been performed a few times in Hong Kong. Yes. And so can you please give us a little bit about the theatre scene here? I see there are a lot of theatres when I walk around the city.
Yeah. Well, I think theatre culture is very strong in Czech Republic, or especially in Prague, and the roots are somewhere in the beginning of 19th century already. So it's more than 200 years where we really have the theatre as one of the most important vehicles of development of Czech culture. And so, for instance, as I already said, in 60s of 19th century, Hungarians were building the parliament and Czechs were building the National Theatre. And also in our revolution in 1989, the theatres played very important role, because not only that the students of the theatre faculty were the first students who went to the strike, but also the theatres were joining the students and stopped performing and transformed the theatres to the places where people can learn about what happened in Prague, and where they could meet and discuss how they want to change society. And it took for more than 3 weeks, when actually the theatres replaced the media, which were still controlled by the communist power. So the theatres played really important role in Czech culture. On the other hand, we were disconnected to the rest of the world for many years. So the ideas about contemporary theatres was very limited to, let's say, 60s. When the revolution came, the idea of what is the modern theatre was more like theatre of absurd, and people didn't know so much about contemporary performing arts. So what I felt like it's important after the revolution was to build the bridges, to build the bridges between the Czech theatre culture and abroad. And by some coincidence, it happened that I was appointed the director of one of the traditional theatres here, and I transformed this theatre into the Center for Contemporary Performing Arts. So from 91 till 94, we were building the theatre we are now sitting in.
But I think that may not be coincidence. I've heard that you've been, even before the 1989, you were involved in the theatre scene somehow, but the underground theatre scene. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, it was, especially in the 80s, I was already involved in let's say, non-conform culture movement, and it happened that I met the living theatre in Poland, which Poland was much more free, especially culturally, than Czechoslovakia at that time. So, and it appeared that they had a transit visas through Prague on the way back. So I persuaded them to create a secret performance in one of the pubs in outskirts, and only 5 people knew where the production would be. So we were calling people saying, "Don't come and don't tell anybody." And we told them where they should meet. One of these 5 people who were guiding them. We didn't tell them where to. We didn't tell them where to go. We were just making meeting points on the tram and bus stops, and then they went to the place.
But well, even at that time, people were dying, or people want to see theater.
Yes, and it was, there was a very strong community of people who were in opposition, who were critical to the regime. So, and these people were hungry for events and for something new, for new inspiration. So this was, as I said, it was easy to say, "Come and don't tell anybody," and the place was always full.
And how about nowadays? So, Jana, how about nowadays? I see there are a lot of theater outside, but what is the major or the most popular trend in general in Prague? So there are more, the audience more like text-based theater, or what kind of theater do they like? Musicals, or in general?
Well, I can speak only, a basic question for me, it's only according to my opinion.
Of course.
I think in general, not many people go to the theater in general. Yeah, you see many places, but there's a very low percentage of people who really go to the theater. And mainly when you ask someone, someone on the street or someone in our neighborhood, they usually say, "Yeah, I saw Shakespeare." I will say, "Where did you see it?" "I don't remember when was it." "And when was it?" "A year ago." So, or people go for musical. And I think in our times, because we are not living in happy world now, mainly now, after COVID, and also the war in Ukraine is very close to us. So seems to me, and now war in Israel, it's very difficult now, and I think more and more people want to be entertained. So they are looking more for entertainment rather than artistic approaches. But I am very positive about the streams we can see amongst the young generation, or people who wants to say something about the world situation through art. And I think I say art because, or stage art or live art, because it seems to me that theater directly brings you to the seat and watching something. But I think now there are more tendencies to multi-genre, design, or give to people another experience where people are more involved, many different ways. And I think also I am hopeful for the format called documentary theater. We started 13 years ago with Accent Festival. We were the first ones who actually started to cultivate this art, which is based on authentic stories or authenticity, different kind. It can be location, it can be some kind of news or person, authentic person who can say something about the bigger story of our world. So there, my hope comes that it's still there. So I see that this tendency of majority be entertained, but on the other hand, there's lots of people, young artists, or my age artists, does not need to be always young, whatever age artists, who are simply, they feel need to speak about the reality and the world, social situation, political, whatever. So yeah, I see it this way. And that's why we are doing it as well. We take it seriously, and doesn't mean that our shows are not entertaining. They are, because it's theater. Yeah, there's lots of beauty in it. But we always try to be political, or we are political, even we don't try, and just speak about certain topic which is urgent for us, for me. Yeah, and I always try to find a common story. When I'm working with someone, I just try to, okay, what's in common? What we have in common? You come from there, I come from here. You have different story, I have different story, but we have definitely something in common. But let's search for it, and let's speak it out through theater.
Yeah. So as you said, this theater, as Jana, you said, you have started this action theater for 30 years. So what made you? 30 years ago, what made you start this? There must be something, there must be a reason.
You mean Accent Festival?
Yeah,
It was 13.
13 years.
13, 1-3. It's not
Yes.
30, 1-3. Yeah,
This theater is 30.
this theater is 30 and Accent is 13.
So I will be
Yes,
maybe
yes,
I will say
you.
about this longer history,
Yes.
maybe for a shorter. Yes, well, I think for me it was important to create a space where this new form of the theater can be presented and created. And there was a story when we were building this theater. The director of the construction company asked the oppositional project for the architecture of our theater. And he invited the experts from the Theatre Institute to oppose our project. And I came and I said, well, why you are opposing our project? And he showed the plans and he said, because this is not the theater. And I said, and you know what the theater is? And he said, everybody knows what the theater is. And I said, well, so I have to disappoint you because I don't know what the theater is. I want to create a place where the theater can be created. And
So he meant the traditional, conventional type of
yes.
Sure, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
it is, everybody has the idea of what. So we actually here build the space for contemporary performing arts, not caring about the borders between genres, and not also caring about the borders, I would say geographical borders. For us, doesn't matter if the artist is from China or Hong Kong or from Czech Republic or from Slovakia. The main question is what the artist has to deliver to our audience, how he or she communicates with our audience, what's the message. Then rather than, oh yeah, we didn't have somebody from Latin America, so let's bring some Latin American artist, whoever he or she is. So we were building the space for contemporary dance, which was not before. There was no place in Czech. Now there are some theaters focused only on dance. We created a place where theater could be performed in arena. So the variable space where every night you could have a different relation between the artist and the audience. And sometimes it's very hard to say where is the border between theater and music, or dance and theater, because dancers now are talking on stage. The performances of some musicians are very theatrical. Yeah. So that was the basic idea for building this theater and creating the dramaturgy for this 30 years we are here. And accent?
About accent?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why did you start?
Yeah, well, myself, looking backwards, I mean, in my life, I studied puppetry, which probably does not have anything in common with documentary theater, but looking at it, for me, it meant to be close to people, speak directly, you know, because maybe you can go on the street much easier than when you play drama theater. I did lots of dance as well, so I am trained as a dancer and puppeteer back in my life. And then later in 1998, it was shortly after Revolution, it was a breaking point in my life because I did improvised performance with Petr Nikl, which is visual artist in Czech Republic. At that time, we had improvised, let's say, object theater show, and we got many invitations from many countries, and one of the invitations was from South Africa, from Johannesburg. And the obligation was that except of performing there and being at a festival as a guest, you know, performing and showing your show, we had to create a short theater piece with inhabitants from the township. Yes. So we were shocked because we did not know. And then we met 5 people, you know, from that area where normally white people never go, you know, because it's dangerous. And we created a piece. And from that moment, I understood that how theater can help to communicate in the areas where normally you can be killed, because simply they would kill you, you know, because they hated white people for very good reason, you know. All people, we did not do anything wrong to them, but because of the color of the skin, you had to be very careful that time. So I started something I felt like it's very important for me as a theater maker. And I switched from performing side because I'm trained as a performer originally. I did lots of performance as a performer on the stage. And suddenly I felt very much pulled to the other side to be creator and director, let's say. And from that time, from 1998, unconsciously, I started to be interested in authenticity. And the reason why I do theater is always to pull down the borders between people where normally people could not speak, could not meet, could not simply communicate. And from that time, I slowly also working 10 years in refugee camps, working with people who were lost in their lives, you know, not speaking language, ended up in the forest in refugee camps in Czech Republic. So slowly, I also created the way how to approach these people, and also invited certain artists working with me. And it was not actors, because actors usually play roles and they are very much dependent on language. And my team was consisting from hip-hoppers, street artists, musicians, music composers, visual artists. And suddenly my language became to be different to what it was before, based on Czech stories and so. So for the Accent Festival, it was the time where I felt it's very important, because we knew, both of us, we knew that very near from us, from Germany, maybe we knew Rimini Protocol, we knew Lola Arias, we knew Shishi Pop, we knew other theater makers who do documentary theater, but here it was not, and I mean it was not known, or was not known how you sell it.
No, even the label documentary theater
did not exist.
Everybody knew documentary film,
but still it's not.
What it is.
So we wanted to connect tendencies in Czech Republic with the existing scene in the world. So that's why we founded Accent Festival. And through these years, I think we educated or let people create or give space to young people to create their own work. One of the shows you will see on Friday, these the 2 wolves, everybody has 2 wolves. This is actually my student, Hanna Kokshalová, who invited these Vietnamese people. So this is one of the clear results of this long way when suddenly I noticed that suddenly people understand me. They know what I mean. So they don't need to have a written text, pre-written. They can use light and sound and video art as a storytellers, you know, they can invite non-trained people, it's okay. And suddenly, seems to me that after all these years, we introduced this type of theater to the Czech society. So I feel happy, and definitely we keep going. This is my work, I keep going anyway, you know, but also we would like to give the space in future for new people, and always we are interested in putting people together, both of us. So we like to invite someone from abroad and put that person together with someone from here and let them work together. So this seems to me that these different cultures, that you give a chance to meet on the stage, always something fruitful happens, because it's a different backgrounds, this is what I learned, and I'm sure it works, and it can bring a new ideas, new approach, and to learn about how we people are in this world, in this complicated world, when we can even say hello to each other, you know, we cannot, you know, it's so complicated now, even we have internet.
Yeah. So, well, actually, one of our slogan is unexpected encounters. So, like the greatest pleasure is to put on the stage people who never met before, and they would, in normal life, they would probably not meet even. And this encounter of these people might bring total new quality and new message, and also new hope, probably.
This is what Ondřej calls laboratory of society. So he says, put people who never met before, but usually I don't put people on the stage who did not meet before. Usually you introduce people, you invite in the process. So I love to work, for instance, when I do workshops, wherever in the world, you know, now very soon I go to Naples, to Italy, and I don't know who I will work with. It will be some people, you know, it is the most exciting for me. Most exciting, I don't know, you know, so you have a chance suddenly to create a moment for people to, and you give them tools, you give them some assignments, and I am so pleased that after a very short time, they suddenly relax and they start to communicate on a very different level, and then after workshop they become to be interested at each other, and they say, oh, I did not know, you know, this is amazing, it's exactly like me, you know, we have something in common. So, and then you can start create. So usually I start with workshop, and then maybe there's another step towards the show or not, doesn't matter, but for me it's both great qualities. So that's why I do theater. So I believe that in a very small world, because you approach only a very small amount of people, then these people go further on and they can influence other people around them. So, and it happens, I know it happens. Our students of summer school, it's hundreds of students already after 8 years. Many, we have many students behind us, right? So they are connected and they communicate, they come back. So this is something hopeful for me. And artistically, I am happy when this kind of format, which combines, in my case, lots of video art, music, authentic stories, suddenly works with audience. So it makes me really happy.
My question is to Ondřej. So how unique Art theater, in particular with this documentary theater school, how unique it is when you put Art theater in the theater scene in Prague. So what's the role of the Art?
Yeah, we are unfortunately, after 30 years, we are still considered to be quite strange animal. You know, it's very, I think for theater critics, it's very hard to put us to some kind of frame, and sometimes what we are bringing is they can't understand, or they don't have the tools how to describe. And we just realized that sometimes, when we brought some artists to Prague, that it took 10 years or even more to recognize this artist on this mainstream level or on this official level. Like when we opened the theater, my dream was to bring Robert Wilson. And it happened. We created a special occasion how to bring this very expensive production to Archa. And this production influenced visual artists, it influenced a lot of musicians and so on. And for many people in the audience, it was like revelation. But the theater critics, one of them said, if this is the theater of 21st century, I hope I will die soon. And it took 15 years, and Robert Wilson was staging opera in the National Theatre, and the same critic wrote, fantastic review on it. So he started to understand it. He needed this 15 years to understand. And
the context, yeah.
Yeah, and it is with many artists like this that they are they were performing here and without any review, and then in some years it's shorter and shorter. That time it was 15, now it's like 7 years. Usually it takes to the theater critics and theater community to recognize these artists. So, well, on the other hand, for instance, we work regularly with Ultima Ves, Wim van de Kebus from Brussels, and we almost everything what was possible we were bringing here. And one day we brought a production which was really like documentary theater or community theater. They brought their neighbors on stage and created a piece which was about the community of people, immigrants from Africa. There was the man who was 90 years old and children who were 10 and 12. So the neighbors of Ultima Ves in Brussels, and there was some guy who said, yes, this is the theater of future. This is how the theater will look in the future. But it was again Ultima Ves. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, they need a label. They have these very strange tools how to describe the theater production, but if the theater doesn't fit to their box, they are totally confused.
Mm. Of course. It's normal everywhere, I think. Yeah. You have to struggle with this opinion, but suddenly you have an audience and they are impressed what you do. And artists always have a different, difficult, because you do something and you get a feedback and you never know, especially being a stage artist, you maybe have had the same experience because you put yourself on the stage, people look at you and you are like what they will say, right? And sometimes you are very, very pleased how they accept it, and next day the same thing, audience is cold and you don't know why. So we must always deal with this, and critics, it's a special chapter in Czech Republic. We don't have critics here. We have just two people, and they they forgot to educate them, right, after revolution, probably. Yeah. We don't have them simply. So, and people don't care about critics here. No one cares. In France, in States, they do. But we have, for my show, 8 compositions of Life of Ukrainians, which was my last piece, I think. We have French critic. French, because we played in Prague Quadriennale, but we don't have Czech. I don't have Czech. For those who speak for themselves, we have a couple of, but because of those COVID time, so they were probably eager to write something, but normally you don't get anything. Who cares? Yeah, you don't need it. Yeah.
So, Jana, how about, I want to ask, how was your, as we discussed before, documentary theatre is such a broad label, and it can be in many different ways. There are many different kinds of documentary theatre.
Yeah.
So what's your approach?
What's my way?
How will you define your documentary theatre?
How I define? I said it a little bit. I try it be more precise. Well, I think my way of thinking about theater was a lot influenced by 3 people. Yeah, I call them my teachers. It was Peter Schumann,
The Bread and Puppet
the
Theater.
Bread and Puppet Theater, Min Tanaka, surprisingly because he is Buto dancer, and Bogart, the American director, and her city company. Quite different theater approaches, but something they have in common. All these 3 creators are composing the whole theater picture. They are not working with text delivered by actor. Of course they do, or they work as individuals. But for instance, the huge moment is also, for instance, when the curtain falls down, or where orchestra is playing loudly and the dark comes, and it has the same quality as if there will be great monologue of the biggest actor in the world. Yeah, so I started to understand, and also maybe my puppet experience, because in puppetry you create very small stage, usually with puppets, but you have to organize the whole space. And I think from there my language came, because I look at the theater as the whole. I decide for the stage, for instance, this, and then each element plays a role in my picture. So I compose from all the elements on the stage. So that's why I'm very particular about where it is, about light, because I am very particular about when the light comes in, when the light disappears, when there's a dark, and it all has meaning in my work. So I think that was the way which resonated with me somehow. I don't know why, but simply it's my way. Plus, during the time, as I said, I did not study directing. It came to me because of my way of thinking, because to be on the stage is great, but not enough for me. I always can go on the stage. I like it sometimes, but I don't do it anymore. So suddenly I realized that I'm very much interested at the stories of people. And now, in my time of career, I am 100% sure that every person in the world has a strong story. Everybody. So before I thought, okay, it has to be someone who's in danger, or like refugees. They always have strong story because they are escaping the home. But now, I know that when you ask a person 3-4 questions, or you give one question to 2 people and they just exchange in interview, you get strong story. It can be teenager, it can be older person, and from that point of, discovery, I am composing my piece. So always there's a visuality. I work usually with videos sometimes, and a lot with lighting design, but also in combination with authentic stories, which are composed many different ways. Like in my show, Those Who Speak for Themselves, it's 12 stories actually, but 5 stages, and these stages are happening at the same time. An audience is walking, and you can choose which one you will look at, and then you choose another one, but because you have echo from far away, from far away, suddenly each person has a different order, because I, for instance, see this story first, you will see that story first, and then we are... So this was experiment thanks to COVID, because Archa was empty, so we could rehearse longer and we could experiment. And this show, it's kind of talking to the audience, I must say, because people feel approached. But form of it, it's very, very alternative, I would say. It's really on the edge of installation and the stage art. And this particular show brought me to the way of working, that to work with the community somewhere. It can be Naples, it can be Oslo, where we did workshop, and in very short time we teach people video art and light design and sound design and my way of how I get the story. And let's say in 4 or 5 days, then we create small groups and they are showing the result, and it's performance. It's real performance, 15, 20 minutes long. So those who speak for themselves brought me also the way how I teach and what I can create with local community in very short time. So it's traveling those who speak for themselves, we call it, yeah.
The other reason is actually to give the voice to people, or amplify the voice of people who are not heard in the society. And actually the most successful piece, Ordinary People, which Jana created with Wen Hui, the Chinese choreographer, and was invited to Avignon Festival and then to Paris, to Festival de Automne. So the main character from the Czech side was the guy whom we met just coincidentally, and he's the worker in the factory. He, all his life, was working in the factory. You would say ordinary person. And then he started to speak, and we realized that in early 60s, he was the best rock and roll dancer in Prague. But this was the bourgeois dance, which was forbidden. So whenever he went to a dance party on Saturday, after some time, the police came and arrested him. But the next week, he danced again, you know. So and in his age of 80, he's still dancing rock and roll. And he was the extra in operas. And he knew all these Smetana operas from heart to sing. So, you know, you discover character which you would not expect at all. And the goal is to give him the chance to express himself, to tell his story, and to amplify his story for the audience.
Yes, but now it sounds like, okay, it's interesting, he's singing and he's dancing, but it was matching his political, what he did, dance, rock and roll dance, or his experience with invasion in 1968. It was matching with story of Wen Hui, who also was in a situation in Tiananmen Square. And it's not the same, totally not same, but it's an oppression of the power on ordinary people's lives. So myself, when I teach, or when I am sometimes doing dramaturgy for other people, or when you will see the performance on Friday, these two wolves, I did dramaturgy for them, and because I am mentor for the director, for the young director, so I told her, look, you always have to think about bigger and smaller story. You have to open the gate through the interviews, that's fine, but you must know how it's connected with the situation of the world. What's the bigger story, simply? Because bigger story we cannot pronounce. We have to go through us, right? We have to open the gate. So I believe that these big political things, you always can touch people's heart only through your personal stories, only. Ondřej spoke about this guy, worker, but there was beautiful story of one of the Chinese dancer who actually was hiding in front of the parents that she's lesbian.
Yeah.
And they don't know, till now. They don't know because they would not take it. And she's struggling, and she said this story on the stage, and we did not know that this particular story will be so strong for the audience everywhere, because here you can say it, but maybe you're hiding something else. You know, it's about not being yourself, not being hurt. It does not need to be political, like, you know, you are fighting somewhere. But it's political is that your freedom is somehow limited. And it can be very personal. And we all have that feeling. Every time, everywhere, people have feeling that they cannot say what they want to say. Even here now, when we have democracy. Everywhere.
I think the most important, is always like the guiding sentence for me when I do documentary theater. I think there's an American scholar, Carol Martin, who has said once, I think in her article, that one of the strengths or the functions of documentary theater is to give the voice to the voiceless.
Yes.
I think that's a very statement.
Exactly.
Especially when I worked with refugees, it was clear. Yeah. Right, it was clear, because those people, who cares of these guys? Everybody is scared of them, right? You know, money and everything. But actually, I made it a little wider for me and maybe more difficult. I would like to listen to anyone and make it, personal for anyone, because anyone here in this room have the story about you are voiceless sometimes. And then when you find the common thing, that then you can touch heart of the person emotionally, audience, and they remember. Then they remember, and they can connect with their personal thing.
My next question is, so after so many years of doing this, what are your principles behind? Because my experience,
yes.
when I do a documentary theater, one of the biggest challenges, because you have so many materials and you don't have a story.
Yes.
So how do you select the materials that are useful? So based on what kind of principles that you select these materials, I think it's very important. So do you have any principles?
Yeah, how to select the story or how to get the story?
How to select?
Select.
How to choose
which one? Yes.
Which one is important to you? So is there any principles behind?
It's a huge thing, I think, and it's a good question, because for me always it's a question how we selected and find the way what's important. And always question myself how to do it, because I work always with different people. You know, my team is the same, but when I do the show, it's usually I work with different people. I don't have permanent company, but I have my collaborators. But when I approach people, it's different. So, thinking quickly, I have assignments in the workshop where I put people in couple, in pair, like this, and they have to listen to each other. So I always try to make it physical, not intellectual. So I don't only I do interviews. When I do the show, I interview each person. I have set of 10 questions, and then I write it down, or someone else write it down for me. And then what I usually do, I let people improvise with, actually, how to say it, it's a similar approach. So one, it's long interview, it's written text. But I usually start with one question, I put it in couple, and the first selection is memory of the person who listens. The person does not make notes.
It's not allowed to make...
It's not allowed. I mean, I don't allow them to make a note. Just listen. And they don't know that they will be asked to tell the story of someone else. So then the experience is that when people listen to the story, your own story, they are absolutely impressed what comes out from the mouth of the person who listened, right? So this is one way of selection, and then we do other steps sometimes that what resonated with the listener emotionally, it's usually the point and it's usually the topic. So this is the way through sharing, through listening, not thinking what's good or bad or words, it happens through the process in a room. And then when you need it for the show, of course, then the dramaturgy, and we write it down, and then we do other. And in my case, it's usually through games and games of listening. I have set of games when people, assignments, not games. You have to cultivate your listening. So it's not, I never put a person in a situation, okay, now tell us your story or speak about yourself, yeah? So I don't do that. And I let people listen to what other people say, and what resonates with them, they remember. So then, and we do lots of improvisations. And my key principle is viewpoint training, which I learned from Anne Bogart. And I use only the part of viewpoint training which you can do with anyone, because some of the part of viewpoint training, it's so sophisticated, so you cannot do it with anyone. But I have set of steps already during my practice that you can really let people do things, and 8 people, 10 people are listening to each other, then they speak in a certain situation, and suddenly they are like, look, this is what's the topic, you know, they do it by themselves. But this is one way. And then, for instance, when for instance, those who speak for themselves, I compose the way, we did many exercises, but I talk to each of the performers for 2 hours, questions, the same set, and transcribed, and then I read it. And the major selection is also what resonates with me. It jumps on me, so I make it shorter, and then when it's shorter, I give it back to the performers, maybe not to the owner, but to all of them, and they simply, again, put it in the process of physical exercises, and we cultivate those lines which are talking to everyone, let's say, and people do it. So, and of course it's, I cannot really name it, but it's through sharing, listening, and I never ever decide by myself, I want you to say this. And sometimes I say it and they say, no, I don't like it, and I say, okay, because I have huge respect to personal story. It's lots of, a huge part of my work that I try to explain to people, look, when you work with personal stories of someone, you must be very respectful, and you must always ask if the person is comfortable. You cannot say everything. You cannot, it needs to be in constant dialogue with the owner of the story and someone who's staging it. It's another principle, because it's censoring itself, You maybe dream about something. It happens to me many times, happened in past, that you like this, and there's no way to say it. You cannot do it because it's very uncomfortable for the person. You do lots of corrections when it's go on the stage. In workshop it's different when it's not public, but when it's dedicated for the audience, I am very particular with how people are comfortable with the words. No one can say what they don't want to say, simply, or be put in a situation which is uncomfortable. Yeah, so it's a self process of, and I listen a lot, and it happens by itself. But of course I'm very particular, when it goes on the stage, I'm very particular on timing, but more physical assignments than intellectual. in my case. And it's a little bit described in my book. I give it to you. I give you my book.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've read it.
Yeah.
I want to ask a bit about the show on Friday.
Yes.
Because I see that is of course it's not your show, but it's
No, a little bit. I felt responsible for this one. Yeah.
So, but she's working with a group of Vietnamese.
Yes. Yes, Vietnamese.
Teenagers. I think teenagers.
They are a little older. They are like, let's
In
say,
their
university
20s.
in their 20s, 23, 24, something like this.
So why?
Why?
Why Vietnamese? Why in particular Vietnamese people? Are there a lot of Vietnamese?
Yes.
Immigrants here?
Maybe you can say.
Yeah, that's. We have quite a long history with Vietnamese community here, because in the communist times they were sent from North Vietnam as apprentices to the factories and to schools here. Usually they told them they will go to school, and then they send them to factory. And so some of these Vietnamese stayed here, or they went back to Vietnam. There is a community of Vietnamese people in Hanoi who are meeting almost everywhere every week in the pub, and they speak Czech. And well, so there is a sort of like a long, way of exchange in Vietnam and Czech Republic. So then, after the revolution, a lot of Vietnamese people came here, and usually they started small business, and they worked on city trades and so on, and they have children. And these children grew up in Czech schools. They speak perfect Czech. But they still have these roots in Vietnamese culture. So the show is actually about confrontation of this, of the faith of these people who were born already here, and they call themselves banana kids, because they like from outside they look Vietnamese, but from inside
they're Czechs.
They already have the roots in Czech culture, and so the show is about this, like two cultures in one body.
Well, but also, speaking about bigger and smaller story, Czechs, Ondřej mentioned that our country was locked for 40 years. It was Second World War and then 40 years of communism. So we did not have any connection with the rest of the world. And Czechs, compared to Polish, on Hungarian or Germany even, we are not used for foreigners and different, culture, backgrounds and whatever. So it's very ridiculous that even they are here from 70s, as Ondřej said, and these kids, these young people, they are Czechs. They are like normal Czechs, and they are studying in Czech schools, and they speak fluent Czech and etc.
Make
Czech jokes. Just Czech people. They are treated from outside still as foreigners, but different culture, and people are a little bit like, sometimes still they call them, like funny names, which is absolutely incorrect in, other democratic countries. And that's why we did the show. Because it's still on the table. It's still, you have to appoint it. You have to say that this is not, you have to, it's again, story of these people, how they speak about family, food, habits, grandmothers, grandfathers, what they like, what they don't like. Suddenly they open the gate to the hearts of people. They touch people with something very personal, and they switch a bit the point of view on them. But usually this show is seen by people who don't need this switch, you know. We would love to bring people who need it, but it's very difficult in theater. You have to go to media. But anyway, we played it a lot. The part of this Theater for Democracy, it was the project, you had this question as well. This project Theater for Democracy was actually a huge project for schools. And this show was the show we performed at schools in basic schools mainly, and usually they have one or two Vietnamese schoolmates in the schools, in the class, and still, even they are friends, and the guy is friend and everything. Still, he's Vietnamese, yeah, he's different. So it's about questioning what's the different and what's common, which is all the time the general topic, I would say. How we are different, and how we feel different, and if it's good or bad, or if it's okay. Maybe it's okay, we cannot be same, right? So this is the reason why we did the show. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And, well, because we were not aware of that kind of that part of history.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning, I thought, it's strange.
Strange, yeah.
Why
Vietnamese people?
Vietnamese people, yeah. But because we had, well, in the 60s, Hong Kong was, there were a lot of Vietnamese immigrants to Hong Kong.
Yeah. And still, we say,
to Hong Kong.
and it's still, there's the shops you see here, lots of Vietnamese shops. You can see it everywhere. And Czechs, still, we say they look through fingers, like this, you know, a little bit suspicious. Czechs, you know, and still it's not correct how we are treating as a majority, not me and Ondřej, but other people. I mean, the majority. Yeah. Because they don't speak fluent Czech, and and that's why, you know,
it's quite surprising, because the parents of these performers, some of them they are here for 30 years or even longer. But their Czech is really poor, you know. So they really lived in two societies and in two cultures.
Yeah. So the last question then, what is that democracy?
Theater for Democracy.
Yeah. Through democracy through theater. What is that program? Can you say a little bit about it?
It's probably a good question for me. No, for you?
Yeah, I think so.
So, okay.
Well, you know, we realized through and everything what Jana was explaining here actually is based on very basic democratic behavior. You know, if you do this collective creation, you have to listen to each other. You have to be tolerant to each other. You have to respect somebody else's decision. And all of this is necessary for democratic life. And so, on contrary, with this educative theater, where usually it is like democratic is good, so that the children see the play about democracy, and then they see the play about totalitarian regime, or, you know, the war and peace also. So this project was more based on these methods of how they can experience actually democratic decision making. And so it was based on workshops where they could experience it. It was based also on performances. They were watching, but after the performance, they always met the artist, and they asked the artist how they created it, what were the principles of this creation, what were the steps, what they had to, how many compromises they had to do, how they respected each other in creative process. So that's why we call this this project through theater to democracy. But we didn't meant the theater pieces or the theater productions, but more this creative process of theater which has these democratic principles.
Yeah, it was very interesting and new for everybody, because we worked with 30 teachers from high schools and basic schools, and with many artists. It was 6 shows involved, as Ondřej said, 3 times each show, workshop after the show, and it was educating. It was actually my concept. I believed it's possible, but I was very worried. I did not know, because to work with so many teachers, so many, and to explain them what's the point was very difficult. And finally, we ended up with a book. Unfortunately, it's in Czech, but I give it to you anyway. I can send you PDF, so you can then go through Google Translator. And I'm very proud of it, because we're educating ourselves mainly. Then, through sharing with teachers, I understood how great teachers are, because I did not know how amazing and what incredible work they are doing at schools, but very few, and they are struggling still with restrictions and rules. So, for instance, when we say, okay, they say, for instance, I would like to do this exercise at school. How should I do it? I say, okay, do it. And they say, we have everywhere tables, and we don't have space. And I said, okay, we will come there. We will help you to organize the space, and we just for free. We can do it for free. But I know that they are so overwhelmed with the duties at school, they even did not contact us. But I hope they will, But it was amazing for all of us, and we finally understood that there's very basic theater tools which make you think about the moment of trust and respect, from where you can start really create something or learn. It's about learning at schools. It's not about creating much, about learning how we can open up and how we can be open to each other. So, and it was a great project, 2 years long. Lots of 700 kids. 700 kids. Yeah. 30 teachers, 15 schools. Big. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.